Hello everyone, this is Dr. Akonix, and today I shall be doing my very first figure review. And for my first review I decided to pick something very obscure. It's an obscure figure of an obscure monster, and that is the Marmit Gyeron Starbem, also known as the Gyeron Starbeast, also known as Starbem Gyeron, also known as Gyeron Starbem, also known as Krell from the Gyeron Galaxy, also known as simply Gyeron. Although I think one of those names might actually be incorrect. Oh well. Yeah, so nothing to it really. This is a very rare, obscure figure from the Marmit Shape of Dreams line based on the Ultra 7 manga. Hence why this Gyeron is actually a very stylized design, because I mean, you can look up the pictures of the normal Gyeron, but the normal Gyeron has no elbows. His wings stick straight out, and they're obviously much thinner than this. And his body's actually a lot more angular than this, whereas this figure has more curvature to it, to match the version seen in the manga. So yeah. So, starting off, I think we should go into this character's history a little bit. He has appeared on screen only twice. First in episode 26 of Ultra 7, obviously. Super Weapon R1, in which he is the victim of the Science Garrison's new weapon, the R1 rocket, which blows up his planet and he comes to Earth looking for revenge. Yeah, it's actually kind of a tragic tale, especially the way he ends up getting killed, which I suppose is more brutal than anything. Yeah, so it was actually quite a somber episode of Ultra 7. And then his second on-screen appearance and his most recent appearance being in episode 20 of Ultraman Geed, the 10 AM bird monster, which is a much more comedic episode, much more lighthearted. Although it is interesting to see Gyeron being used in the capacity of the monster Aron from Ultra 7 again. And Aron, of course, was a test monster used by the alien Guts to test Ultra 7's abilities, basically, so they knew how to counter him. So yeah, that basically does it for his on-screen history. Only appeared twice. He's, and despite only appearing twice, he's actually sort of popular amongst Japanese fans, which is interesting. Yeah, so I guess now we move on to the actual figure itself. I'm not sure if this is really going to show up on camera very much, but the detail on this thing is exquisite. Which, of course, isn't saying too much because this is a very simplistic design anyway. But it's very nicely captured, especially being, a cartoon depiction of a monster. They put a lot of work into this, especially around the face. Even the claws, down the feet, yep. Yeah. And I will say, with this stylized design, he does sort of remind me a bit of the Martians from one of the reprints of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. I'm sure someone else has probably read that version as well, where the Martians have these weird, beaky faces, and they have like little baby Martians that drop off their backs. Kind of disturbing, really. But yeah, one thing to note, this figure has no articulation whatsoever. It's basically just a hard vinyl statue. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because, especially since it looks like he would have articulation, like in the neck, especially in the hands too, because the hands you can see there are little seals on them. As I found out, those are really not meant to be broken because, kind of unfortunate story about this. He was actually sitting up on a shelf, and my cat walked past it with his tail and knocked him over, and fell onto the floor, onto his right hand, and it popped right off. As you can see, I tried to glue it back on, but the glue didn't really set too well. Yeah, these hands actually aren't held in by any sort of seal, like any proper seal. They're just little nubs that stick into, a little indent in the wrist. So yeah, not really ideal for posing. He's just a nice little display model, basically. Nothing really wrong with that. It's always good to have, just a standard figure, I guess. And of course, he is hard vinyl too, so he is a little more brittle. But yeah, I think that'll about do it for that. Now let's move on to size comparisons. So for size comparisons, first up I'm going to bring out my only other Marmit Shape of Dreams Ultra 7 figure, and that is Alien Pit A. Or is it B? I can't remember which one. Yeah, she is a bit smaller, and this just goes to show the different scales that Marmit actually do their figures in, because none of them are of a consistent scale with like any sort of other, well, especially with Bandai figures, they don't really scale that well. These two are actually the exception, because Alien Pit here scales perfectly with the Ultra Hero 500 line, with Spark Dolls, and she scales well with most of the aliens as well. So there's that. Unfortunately, Gyeron does tower a bit over Ultra 7 here, but that's not too much of a problem, because, ideally you would have a 6-inch figure as well. So let's just pull out something else. Here's a obscure version of Ultra 7 from Ultra 7X. This doesn't quite work out because, again, 7's a little bit too tall. Ideally, you'd want a 5.5-inch Ultra 7 to go right in between. I mean, I can try comparing to my Ultra Act, but even then, yeah, the Ultra Act Ultra 7 is still way too tall. Let's see, here's another bird-like monster from Ultra 7 as well. Windom, the capsule monster. These two actually scale very nicely with each other, surprisingly. Yeah, no real complaints here. This is actually probably the best scaling yet. As an aside, I should also probably compare the Spark Doll of Bemstar, a monster who both has a similar name and similar design, or similar-ish. And I only have the Spark Doll of Bemstar because, quite frankly, I don't like the look of the 6-inch Bemstar. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't scale well at all, but it is cool to see them together. I do not have the current Ultra Monster series Gyeron Seiju. I was thinking about getting it, but I figured because this actually, I actually ordered this a while back, so I'm actually happier to have this, to be honest, even if it doesn't really move. Although I will probably end up getting the Bandai one anyway, just for completionist's sake. And final comparison will be with Alien Guts, the Heisei version. This is a fairly apt comparison because, of course, Gyeron was used in the capacity of Addon. Addon, of course, being a monster puppet used by, well, not a monster puppet, but a test monster used by Alien Guts. And these two also scale very nicely with each other. See, Ultra 7 seemed to have a thing for bird-like creatures, huh? Ultra 7, Eiji Tsuburaya. Because, yeah. And that's also kind of apt because Windom also appeared in the Alien Guts episode and was killed. Alright, so here's the original box that Gyeron came in, and as you can see, it is massive. When I first saw the parcel in the mail, I was kind of stumped. I thought I had accidentally ordered more than one, but no, he's just really big. Like, a lot bigger than I thought he was going to be. And on the back you can just see all the other figures in the line to correspond with the chapters of the manga. Yeah, I think that'll about do it for this video. So, Alright, back to the figure. Alright, so back to Gyeron here. As far as his on-screen history goes, he's only made 2 appearances, which is fair enough. You know, he's a very obscure monster. The figure itself is actually very nicely made of hard vinyl. Very nicely detailed. Paintwork is decent. Could do with a little more weathering, perhaps. Articulation is none, because it's basically just a little statue. And that's fine. Does rock a bit on his feet, which is unfortunate, but that's just, you know, that's just with my figure. Although I will say he's extremely rare, so I doubt many other people watching this will probably end up with one. But, you know, just in case you do decide to go after one, good luck. Yeah, that'll about do it. So, I guess see you all next year.